So thank you very much. It's really lovely to be with you this evening. I want to say a huge well done straight away. So Sir's given me a very kind introduction, but I'm just going to broaden it out a little bit in terms of what I'm going to talk to you about. What I'm going to talk to you about this evening is essentially what top universities like Oxford and everywhere are looking for in their applicants. So we're talking specifically university, but what I'm going to talk to you about applies to job applications, apprenticeships, whatever pathway you're thinking about. The aim of this session is to kind of get you orientated in the right headspace. Is that better? Oh, that's really echoey. So getting you in the right headspace for what you can be doing to set yourself apart positively. Before we start the session, the most obvious thing to say is being on Future Leaders is one of those things. As someone who reads a lot of applications, as someone who looks at a lot of personal statements, the fact you have gone through a competitive application process to be selected for Future Leaders already says that you're starting to do some of the right things, okay? So the session's called Being Supercurricular, and we'll unpack what that means, but most importantly, I'll explain to you what that means, but why it matters, whatever pathway you're thinking. So we're going to start off by talking about what we mean by that. I want to make this session as practical for you as it can be, so each of you hopefully will leave with a sense of what your next step is, regardless of what your end destination is. You'll know what your next step is. And then lastly, we're going to have a look at some ideas of how you would extend your knowledge outside the classroom. And I've given you like an article that's in front of you at the minute, and we'll have a look at that together. Okay, but just start off and get you guys thinking. If I represent one of the best universities in the world, what are we looking for when we are looking at university applicants? I'm going to suggest that we're looking for 4 key things. I want you to have a look and have a chat on your tables. What are the 4 key things a university like Oxford are looking for in their students? All right, so just take a couple of minutes. 4 key things. You don't need to look at the paper in front of you. The answer is not there yet. All right, what are we looking for? I've realised me interrupting you stopped all of your conversations dead, so I'm going to carry on anyway. Can someone put their hand up and tell me something that a university is going to be looking at? I've said there's 4 things. What are we going to be looking at? Yeah, kick us off. Grades. Yeah, wherever you're applying, that is the first thing every university will look at. They will look at your GCSEs and your A-levels or whatever qualifications. So yeah, great. Personal statement. Why do you reckon we look at personal statements? Or what are we looking for on a personal statement? Yeah, so outstanding people. We're looking for outstanding people. We're going to unpack what we mean by that a little bit more, so thank you. Extracurriculars was the thing that was said. What's an extracurricular? Great, so something you do outside of school. Okay, so we'll unpack that a little bit more. What else? Fantastic. And actually, that's a really nice progression of what was said there. So extracurriculars outside of your subject and outside of doing well at school. But actually what's just been said there is subject-specific things. Brilliant. You've been waiting for ages. Go on. Fantastic. Yeah, like you want to be showing that you're interested in going there, right? And actually, were there any other hands that I've missed? Yeah, go on, last thing. Yeah, fantastic. So you might be aware that for some courses, like if any of you are interested in medicine, dentistry, veterinary science, that kind of thing, you might have to do an admissions test to do that, so BMAT or UCAT. If you're applying for Oxford or Cambridge, there's probably an admissions test there as well. So yeah, that helps us test you're academically ready. But I'm just going to unpack what I reckon we're looking for. Just to say, I appreciate the slides are quite small. They'll be sent round to you along with some other stuff after the session. So there's a really good opportunity there. But grades, we're not going to talk really about grades today. We're going to talk about these other 3 things because frankly, they're ones that I can give you some input on and help you support with. Actually, no one really talked about this one. If I ask someone who teaches where I work what they want in a student, the first thing they will say is someone who likes their subject, right? I did an interview prep session with someone. He said, oh, I want to be a dentist. Why do you want to be a dentist? And his answer was, because I want to earn lots of money, right? That's an honest answer. I get that. But if I'm interviewing that student for a place, it's not a very attractive answer, right? You need to convince me that you are academically interested and engaged in that subject, right? So we'll talk about how you do that, and that will come back to this idea of supercurriculars in a second. These middle two are related, and they came up from a few of the things that were said by students there. When you go to university, the skills you need to do that are different from the skills you use at school, right? University is different from school. What we're doing on a personal statement is giving you a chance to show you've got skills likely to be able to mean you'll succeed at a university. Not that you're there yet, but you've got the potential to come and succeed with us. So there's things that every university course, or even if you're on apprenticeships, they will want to see in you. They will want to know that you're a good team worker. You've got good communication. It sounds like the next session is going to complement that really well in terms of how you can be presenting yourself, how you can be an effective member of a team, that kind of thing. But actually, it's really important that you have the skills to come and do this course, right? So I was just chatting to someone on this table who's interested in engineering. A specific criteria for engineering is to be able to apply physics concepts to real-world problems, right? If you want to study English, right, that's not going to be required, yeah? So one of your jobs as you're starting to get more informed about what you want to do is to be better aware of the skills you need to do that course, how you're going to show your university or your potential employer that you've got those skills, right? And I want to make a key distinction here, and I'm sorry that I'm starting with a bit of jargon, but it matters, right? Extracurricular. Now that is stuff you do outside of school that you do because you enjoy it, right? So you might do sport, student government, volunteering, you might play an instrument, you might do drama. To be blunt, if you're a university like Oxford, we don't really care about these. What we care about them is they're an opportunity for you to show to us skills like it's not that you play football, it's that you're a member of a team or that you manage your time. The football itself doesn't really matter, okay? What we're more bothered about is this supercurricular. And this is the idea of what are you doing outside of being clever at school that shows that you are interested and engaged in your subject and are taking your learning in that subject beyond what you just do in the classroom. And this is where something like Future Leaders is a brilliant opportunity because you will be encountering situations where you're stretched outside of your normal school learning regularly. Like the timetable of this program is brilliant, right? Use these opportunities to stretch and challenge yourself. I said that I was going to give you some stuff. Here are some examples of ways you can be supercurricular. So when I'm working with students, I'll recommend particular resources. The basic message is put yourself in the path of clever people talking about their subject, whether it's on a podcast, like you read a couple of articles in The Economist, you might do a MOOC, or your school might do EPQs, that kind of thing. Are you encountering the cutting edge of your subject through various ways? And like I said, there'll be some resources to help with this. I'll do a few shameless plugs as we go through. Most universities will be doing summer schools. Recruitment for those will be open at the moment, so I'll talk about Unique in a second. You might be at a school or a sixth form where you do EPQs. Great way of you extending beyond being clever at school. You get to pick what you're doing. You're showing off university skills in what you're talking about. Practical work experience. Have we got anyone who wants to do computer science in the room? Okay. Pet hate of looking at a computer science application is that it'll start by telling me I got my first computer when I was 8 years old. I don't care. right? But can you code? Can you show me the practical skills that you would need to do computer science? So for example, have you used Python to develop game apps? Or have you used software to develop particular things? Far more compelling than just telling me you got a computer when you were a kid, right? Show the practical skills for that course. One of the opportunities you get on Future Leaders is maybe scope for a bit of work experience. If that's relevant to your course, that's a killer thing to be getting involved with. Reading, podcasts, universities put a lot of their content online so you can access them. I think a thing to note here is none of this should really cost you money. You should be able to do all of this stuff very cheaply. Okay, so like summer schools, universities will normally cover the cost of those for you. When we look at personal statements and applications, you're in this tricky position that we'll often tell you, and I've just told you, we want to teach people who are interested in their subject. But how do you communicate that you're interested in your subject without just saying, I am passionate about history, I'm passionate about computer science? So I was thinking how to communicate this effectively with you, and I thought I'd just show you some good examples. So in front of you, just wait for me to finish giving the instruction before you move, otherwise we'll get loads of rustles of paper. You've got an article, we'll come back to that. Then the next pages are 4 personal statements of students who studied with me at Wadham. So you've got 4 different subjects represented: engineering, classics, French and Arabic, and biochemistry. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look at them, and the point here is not that you want to do one of these 4 subjects. It's an opportunity for you to learn from people who have been successful in their competitive application process, and it gives you a chance to learn from them. Okay? So what we're going to do is you're going to have a look at the example. I want you to be active with this, so if you've got pens, highlighters, that sort of thing with you, I want you to get them out and highlight and annotate as you're doing it. Okay? Now, just before you move, let me give you a few instructions. Thank you, guys. So, your first task will be to read the personal statement in front of you. The second task is to identify supercurriculars. So remember, these are things that show academic interest and skills for the course beyond what you're doing at school. Thank you, sir. So highlight those, count them up as well, so you can get a sense of how many you're working towards. And that is the main stuff that I want you to do, really. Now, I'm going to divide you up into groups to make sure we've got good coverage of all of the subjects. So I'm going to label you guys table 1. Can you do the classic statement for me? Let me just remind myself who we've got. Guys at the back, this corner, table 2, engineering, please. This table, I'm going to call you guys table 3. French and Arabic, please. Biochemistry, guys. This table here, engineering, because we've got an engineer on that table. Classics, this table, French and Arabic. This table, biochem. This table, do you know what? Do what you want. You guys do what you want as well. Now, I realized just from some of the questions that I had straight off from this table, just to take a step back, when you make an application to university in the UK, just some facts about that. You have 5 spaces that you can use for your application. As part of your UCAS application, so you apply through UCAS, you have to do a personal statement. Your personal statement, these are actually their personal statements that they wrote. Your personal statement, fast forward to this time next year, you're working towards a page of A4, 4,000 characters, where you're showing that you're ready and interested and suitable for your course. Okay? Right, so I came and asked you and forgot. Classics was this table, right? Can you give me a couple of things that, I'll just say it anyway. Right, This statement is Taiwo from Tottenham's. She came and studied classics with us. She graduated last year. She now works in like TV production or something like that. So give me some of the stuff that is on that classics personal statement. Rest of you, you might want to flip to that classics one if you've not read it already. So this table, something that our classicist has done that is a supercurricular. Thank you. Fantastic. So if you're studying classics, which for those of you who might not know, study of ancient civilizations, particularly the Greeks and Romans. So there is language skill. Taiwo is learning 4 different languages, I think is right. She's doing like Mandarin from memory. She does a few other languages. So she's clearly demonstrating subject interest and skills from her languages that she's doing. This back corner, were you looking at engineering? Right, this is Luke from Buckinghamshire. He graduated last year as well. Can you give me a couple of things that Luke is doing as an engineer, guys? Yeah, so I think I heard you right. So he's done a few things of like the theory, was it theories you were saying? Like, yeah. Yeah, so he's done some really practical stuff related to engineering. Thank you, really good start. Anything else? Thanks. Yeah. Fantastic. I'll cut you off there. Yeah, really nice. So he talks about like engineering's quite a practical course. It's quite theoretical, but it's also quite practical. So he designed and built a chair using his skills. So really good practical application. Guys here, which were you looking at? Biochemistry. What are some of the stuff? So this is Kat. She's from near where I'm from, up in Leeds. What's Kat done? Can you give me one thing? Yeah. Fantastic. So for those of you who couldn't hear that, she's read some books on a topic. So she's got 3 or 4 different authors that she talks about, books that she's read, and more impressively, she said that she's read something and what she thought about it. Great. This back table, by process of elimination, French and Arabic. This is Nadia, she's from Southampton. Give me some of the things that Nadia's done on her statement. Read books about what? What are the books that she's read about? Right. I'll help you out. She has read, she's doing French and Arabic, right? She talks about magazines she subscribed to in French, based in French-speaking countries in North Africa, I think, from memory. And she talks about what she's learned from those. All right? Guys here, which one were you looking at the engineer as well? Anything you want to add that's been missed from Luke? Yeah, I think the thing that stands out about Luke is he proactively went out to companies and said, I'm interested in what you do. Can I come and have a look round? Yeah? That's a really easy thing for you to proactively do. So I think Luke's mindset there really does set him out. Guys here, we'll quickly come to you. Which one are you looking at? Pardon? Classics. Give me something else Taiwo did then. Yeah, so she talks about Greek tragedies, which is obviously relevant if you're doing classics, and she goes into quite a lot of detail, right? So if we just pull back about examples of supercurriculars, so this is all like from memory because I've looked at these statements a few times. On the classics one, you've also got, Taiwo talks about having done Brilliant Club, so that might be an organisation that you've engaged with. She came on a summer school. She's also gone to the theatre, and she talks about how those plays related to the plays she'd read. She applies her knowledge of English, like Shakespeare study, to her knowledge of classics. I'm trying to think. I think you covered most of the engineering ones. The other one to flag up, on our biochemist, Kat, for those of you who've not got that in front of you, just look at the opening paragraph of the biochemistry application. What I always notice with personal statements like this is quite a lot of students have in their heads, like, ever since I was 3, I knew I wanted to be a medical doctor. Don't do that. What all of the statements have is a really punchy beginning, and they get into why they want to do the subject and showing the skills for their subject very, very quickly. Yeah, so Kat's first bit of evidence is work experience, and then she relates that really explicitly to biochemistry. Work experience in a deaf school could be applicable to lots of different courses, right? But she makes it specific to her course very, very quickly. Similarly, if you have a quick look to Nadia's, so the French and Arabic statement, straight away starts off with a very bland opening sentence. I get that studying French at university isn't just about doing grammar. And then she goes straight into one of her best bits of evidence, an EPQ. So she talks about the specific things that she's written about on her EPQ, where she talks about liberté, égalité, fraternité. The other thing to say is, rather than saying you're passionate, hopefully what you've picked up from these examples is they show passion rather than just saying they're passionate. One of the uniting themes of these 4 statements is you don't have to meet these people to get that they really like their subject and they've done stuff to do it and to show that they're interested and engaged in it. So, I think when I was chatting about the engineering statement, one of the really obvious things that the students picked up on was it's just pretty much all supercurricular. The first 2 paragraphs of Luke's statement are very focused and targeted. This is what I've done, this is what I've learned. And this is what we call critical thinking. A pet hate of mine when I look at applications is a list of things that a student's done. And I'm going to say, I've said this to Mr. Khan before, sometimes future leaders do this. You guys get a lot of experiences, but you need to reflect on what you've gained from those experiences. Otherwise, you just list stuff you've done. And when I read a personal statement, I have what I call a so what test. So if you say, on future leaders, I don't know, I'm going to look over to Sir, you've got work experience at Amazon, something like that. If you just say that on its own, I don't care, right? What you need to communicate to me is, I did work experience at Amazon, here's what I learned from it. Here's what I did. That is showing your interest in your skills, right? Far more than, I got this really good opportunity that landed in my lap, right? That's critical thinking. The other thing that you can do is this idea of stepping stones. So learning is never a static process. You are always going to your next stage in your learning. So if you can, I think I've got some examples here. Well, you're going to find the examples actually. Rather than, here is something I did, stepping stones is where you say, here's something I did, here's what I thought about it, and then proactively, here's what I went and did with that information. So I maybe went and read another book, went and listened to a podcast, did some work experience, proactively went and did something. And what you're communicating to someone like me is, this is a student who's interested in their subject and passionate about their learning because they're proactively taking responsibility to move it on, okay? So what I would like you to have a look for do you know what, at this stage, have a look at any of the personal statements, the one that resonates closest to you. Have a look. Can you see evidence of critical thinking? This is what I did, this is what I thought of it. And stepping stones, that idea that learning takes you to next steps in the process. Okay, so we'll just pause for a minute or so, have a quick look, and then we'll move on. Okay, so with an eye on time, I'm going to move on. So, I appreciate most of you won't have thought about university applications, that's really normal. But what I wanted to do is to give you an opportunity to reflect and think about what you're going to do about it. So, if I was to ask you to write a university application today, what are the things that you would talk about? Have you got any supercurriculars? Now, this is the reassuring bit. Normally, when I do this with Year 12s at this stage, they have a blank bit of paper in front of them. You can all say you're on Future Leaders. That is a brilliant supercurricular to be able to talk about. But I want you to have a think more about what are the things you need to be doing. Okay, so to give you some ideas, I'll send round a list of Cambridge recommendations which are organised by subject. And similar for us, we've got our own Excel spreadsheet that you can use with recommendations. So let's say you're interested in law, you could have a look on the Cambridge or on the Wadham documents, and they would give you examples of supercurriculars that you could be doing. Okay? If you're interested in STEM, here's a list of resources that you can kind of get involved for maths and computer science. There's also a list for engineering and physics. I mentioned summer schools, the shameless plug for Oxford's summer school, which is called Unique. That applications for that are open now. They close pretty quick. So if you are interested in our summer school, please do have a look online. Very easy to apply, about 10 minutes application process, but really worth doing. Now, what I want you to do, just as we wrap up this bit, I want you to think about one supercurricular activity that you're going to pledge to do. Okay, one thing that you're going to follow up on. Is it you're going to try and read an article from The Economist? Is it you're going to have a look at that spreadsheet that I just talked about? Is it you're going to apply for Unique? Okay? Number 2, really practically, keep a list, like a notes app on your phone, Word doc, or like a hard copy of things you are doing that are beyond your normal school learning, these supercurriculars. Have a think about what you did and what you learnt from doing them. And then I know you're starting your mentoring, or you've started your mentoring. One of your activities is going to be to draft a paragraph of personal statement. So talking about one of the things that you're doing on your supercurriculars. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause here, give you an opportunity to have a think about one thing you are going to do to help get you to where you want to be this time next year. Okay? So one supercurricular that you are going to try and explore. I'll give you 1 minute and then we'll move on. So have a think, write it down, chat to your mate, whatever. So because of my bad timekeeping, I'm going to switch up with what we're going to do. To give you something that you might want to do in your own time, if you flip back quickly to the very front page, you've got an article called Demography is Not Destiny. This was an article that I pulled out from the Financial Times. And what I would encourage you to do is have a look at that article and have a think. So we were chatting over here, there's a student who's interested in midwifery, okay? So training to be a midwife. That is an article that relates to midwifery in quite a few ways. If any of you are interested in economics, the article in front of you relates to you. It also relates if you're interested in politics. It relates if you're interested in medicine. It basically relates to so many different subjects, and that's why I picked it. So, as a critical reader, what I'd encourage you to do is have a look at the article. Guys, it's not long. I read it in a coffee shop before I came down here. It took me less than 5 minutes. All you need to do, read it, annotate it. How does it relate to the subject that you're wanting to do or things that you are interested in? And that is designed to show you, to get into a university like Oxford, you don't need to subscribe to the Financial Times and read it cover to cover every day, but reading a couple of things like every couple of months, is going to show you are interested and engaged in your subject. So I thought what I'll do, because we've only got a little bit of time, I had some questions about interviews and things that you might do at Oxford. We interview, okay? And what we're looking for there is students who can learn. We interview to see what you're going to be like on the course with us, all right? So the best way for us to do that is to give you a question that you don't know and don't know the answer to and see how you adapt to it. So what we're going to do is have a go at a question from medicine, just for the last few minutes of the session. You've got 4 countries, and this is where you are going to need to write stuff down, right? You've got 4 countries: Bangladesh, the UK, Japan, and South Africa. Just listen in, guys. So you've got 4 countries: Bangladesh, UK, Japan, South Africa. What I would like you to do is to put them in order of their crude mortality. That basically means the number of deaths per 1,000. So country 1 has the highest crude mortality. Country 4 has the lowest crude mortality. In your groups, put them in order 1 through 4. Why have you ordered them the way you've ordered them? If you put Bangladesh as the country with the highest crude mortality, can you put your hand up for me, please? Okay, thanks guys, pop your hands down. If you've got the UK as the highest crude mortality, 1, okay. If you reckon it's Japan, a few hands, a confident table for Japan over the back there. So, South Africa, okay, hands down, right. I think the most common answer there was Bangladesh as the number 1 country. If you put Bangladesh as your number 1, can you just pop your hands up again for me? Right, who have I not spoken to? Right, can you give me one reason why you had Bangladesh as ranked where it was? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, say that last bit again. So you were talking about like the economic development of the country. Really good point to make. Good. So we're thinking there about living conditions in Bangladesh might be worse relative to the other countries. Does anyone else who said Bangladesh want to chip in with why they had it? Yeah, thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, really good. So for those of you who couldn't hear, that was an extension of the point there about being a low economically developed country and some of the consequences of that. So like access to healthcare got mentioned. Do you want to jump in? Say that again for me. Yes, so there are particular risk factors, like in terms of weather, that might cause that country to have an increased risk of death. Last point, and then we'll move on. Okay. Okay, so an interesting point about labour laws there. If we just take a step back, when you've got a question like this, there are different ways you can tackle it, right? You can look at risk factors, which is where most students start with this. Basically like, what's going to kill you in one of these countries, right? What are the main risks of death in these countries? Is it weather, access, or like lack of access to healthcare, poor quality housing, knife crime we talked about on one of the tables? The more positive version of this is like, what's going to keep you alive, right? So access to healthcare, if we flip that point on its head, the fact the UK has an NHS, free healthcare for all, might promote life, okay? And then some of you, the more mathematic amongst you, might have thought about like the maths of the question. So we were talking about population size, population densities, Crude mortality is quite an odd term that you might not have come across before. So what's going to happen in an interview is you'll give articulate answers. So thank you, students who fed back there, really nice points. What I'm then going to do is give you more information. And the point here is not to go, ha, I tricked you. The point here is to go, you gave sensible answers, but you were probably wrong. So the answer is, Japan has the highest crude mortality. And then the UK, South Africa, and Bangladesh actually has the lowest crude mortality. Three, two, one. Thank you, guys. That was the desired reaction from a room. But the point here is not, ha, I tricked you. Ha, you got like... The point here is some more information. Why is the order like this? And actually, the guys down the front made a point that they kind of skipped over quite quickly. Do you want to... What did you say? Rather than basking in the glory. Like, what did you actually say? Yeah. So Japan and the UK have very aging populations. They're economically developed, yes, and the consequence of that is their demographic makeup is like an upside down triangle. There are more old people than young people. In Japan, they have actively, the government bribes its citizens to get married and have kids because the birth rate is so low, right? What's the biggest risk of death? Old age. So actually, the fact that UK and Japan have old populations mean that their crude mortality is higher. The problem with finishing with this is I'm never sure how to seamlessly transition from talking about death rates in Japan to something like heartwarming about how you will all achieve brilliant things. So I'm not even going to try. Just to take a step back, the main points I've tried to cover with you are showing that you are interested and engaged in your subject, whatever you're wanting to do, is the best way of increasing your likelihood of getting an offer for that course, whether it's an apprenticeship or university. So, put in your, like, the way you're orientating your year, give yourself opportunities to be recording those opportunities down. What are you learning from them? What are you doing? How are you taking them further? And proactively seek them out. Future Leaders is a brilliant start, but use it as a stepping stone to progress on into the other things that you're interested in. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Khan there in terms of what practical next steps are, but thank you very much, and I'll pass over to Mr. Khan.